Good evening, bienvenue à tout le monde to our special council meeting. So roll call, all members of council are present. Adoption of agenda, I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Conseiller Lalonde. All in favor? Thank you, approved. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing, hearing none, we'll move forward. Reports from departments and council committees. So this evening, Recreation Complex Update Report, PR 2024-08. Madame Guittard, à travers vous, Monsieur Godin. La parole est à vous.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Bonsoir, chers membres du Conseil. I'll start if it's okay. Donc, we call this special council meeting tonight to present council and the public with the tender results for the construction of the rec complex, as well as to present the updated recreational complex financial plan. We wanted to present this to council in two parts. So the goal for today is to present the information and to respond to any questions that you may have. We will then be including this topic on next week's regular council meeting agenda with our recommendation to award the contract. We decided to proceed with this approach for three reasons. First of all, to give council some time to reflect on the information provided before making this important decision. Provide the opportunity for council members and for members of the public to ask questions throughout the week, leading up to the decision to award the contract or not next week, and to provide the public with some time to reach out to their members of council throughout the week to share their thoughts and questions. So the Planning Advisory Committee is meeting, there's a meeting scheduled tonight for 6 p.m., but it's been pushed back to 6:30 to provide us with some time for this discussion. We recognize that there still may not be sufficient time to allow everyone to ask their questions, and therefore we've been encouraging members of the public to provide their questions by email if that's the case. And we'll do our best to answer all questions promptly, and we'll include a Q&A section with our report for the June 24th meeting. Donc, sur ce, je vais laisser la parole à Madame Céline Guittard pour dire quelques mots.
Thank you, Mr. Godin. Mr. Mayor, members of council, good evening. So tonight we wanted to discuss primarily the outcome of the tender process that was finalized last week. So as you probably be recalling, the pre-qualification was done for the general contractor on February 20th, and it closed on March 19th. From that pre-qualification, 13 submissions were provided, and then the analysis was done with our project manager, Turner & Townsend, MGMA, our architects, and township staff. So the average of the score was used to determine which company qualified, and an overall score of 70 points or more was required to be retained for the next step. So in the report, I did list all the bidders for the pre-qualification and the outcome of the final results for the pre-qual. So following that review, 8 companies did qualify to bid for the construction project. On April 17, 2024, the 8 companies received the full documentation to submit the price for the construction for the recreation complex. And on June 11th, which was last week, 3 bids were received from the following companies. We did have the question, what happened to the 5 companies in the meantime? Most of those companies did not pick up or finally did not bid because they were awarded other important contracts during the meantime. So I guess they had decided that it would not be feasible in their time to be taking over this big project. So we were still very happy with the 3 bidders that did submit a price. And up to now, the winning bidder was McDonald Brothers Construction, Inc., for the amount of $86,075,000. The other one that was very close.
Excusez, Madame Guittard.
Sorry, I just want to clarify because words are important. You said the winning bidder. We don't have a winning bidder yet. Council will make that determination at the next meeting, right? I just wanted
Thank you.
to make sure
That's
that
correct.
that was clear.
That's correct.
Sorry
Thank you.
about interrupting.
So the closest bidder was $86,075,000. The second closest one was Pomerleau, Inc., with $91 million. And the third one was Butcon Limited for $104,899,000. So McDonald Brothers Construction, Inc. submission was revised by the consultants and the staff was deemed acceptable. So at this point now, we wanted also to be take advantage of this meeting to go maybe deeper with more, how can I say, more extensive with the financial strategy and a more up-to-date strategy, since now we do have a more firm number to work with. So as a team, we did work on that, and I think Monsieur Sébastien will, Director of Finance, will be directing you with the new numbers that he had produced in the last few days. Sébastien.
Bonsoir, chers membres du Conseil. Ce soir, nous vous présentons notre plan financier pour la construction du complexe récréatif de la municipalité de Russell. Cette présentation est encore en mode brouillon, car nous avons seulement reçu la documentation des soumissions jeudi dernier et nous devions rendre ce rapport public dès vendredi. Nous vous tiendrons informés tout au long de la semaine si nous devons modifier certaines informations dans cette présentation en raison de la réception de nouvelles informations ayant un impact sur notre plan financier. Vous aurez également l'occasion de poser vos questions tout au long de la semaine et nous ferons un plaisir d'y répondre. Nous créerons également une communication qui sera incluse dans le rapport du 24 juin avec toutes les questions et réponses que nous avons reçues pour informer tous les résidents pendant la semaine. Nous avons dû apporter une modification au budget suite à la révision du plan financier ce week-end. Des dépenses liées au coût d'amélioration des sols par A.L. Blair n'avaient pas été incluses dans les coûts de construction. Ce soir, notre objectif est de vous montrer les répercussions des coûts de construction sur notre stratégie financière et sur la santé financière de la municipalité. Nous aborderons également les risques associés à un tel prêt pour la municipalité. N'hésitez pas à poser vos questions au fur et à mesure de la présentation. Donc, comme vous voyez sur cette première diapositive, le soumissionnaire le plus bas pour le coût de construction s'élève à 86 075 000. Ce coût inclut tous les frais liés à la construction du complexe. En plus de cette soumission, les frais non liés à la construction du complexe, tels que les honoraires des ingénieurs, architectes, gestionnaires de projets, l'acquisition du terrain, les permis de construction, etc., s'élèvent à environ 18 234 044. Certains de ces coûts sont des estimations, comme par exemple, nous avons créé un fonds de réserve de près de 5 millions de dollars, représentant 5 % du coût total du projet, pour couvrir les coûts imprévus de construction. Ce pourcentage a été décidé avec l'aide de nos experts, qui estiment que 5 % devrait suffire à couvrir les risques liés aux conditions imprévues, aux changements de conception, aux ajustements de calendrier, etc. Un autre coût important dans ce budget est le coût d'intérêt pour le prêt de construction, estimé à près de 4,5 millions de dollars. Ainsi, nous envisageons un coût total de projet de 104 309 044 dollars pour la construction du complexe récréatif. On peut passer à la prochaine diapo. Au niveau du financement, ce projet se divise en deux étapes. La première étape, qui débute en juillet 2024 et qui se termine à la fin de la construction, est la phase de construction, pour laquelle nous aurons besoin d'un prêt de construction afin de le financer. Un prêt de construction est un type de prêt à court terme spécialement conçu pour financer le coût de la construction. Au lieu de recevoir une somme forfaitaire upfront, les fonds d'un prêt de construction seront décaissés par phase à mesure que le projet atteint des étapes prédéterminées. Cela garantit que les fonds sont utilisés à des fins prévues et sont libérés en fonction de l'avancement des travaux. Pendant la phase de construction, nous allons seulement payer les intérêts sur le montant d'argent décaissé. En ce qui concerne le prêt pour la construction, nous sommes en discussion présentement avec Infrastructure Ontario depuis plus d'1 an et ils présenteront notre projet lors de leur réunion du Conseil le 20 juin, donc jeudi, pour obtenir l'approbation. ADJO a un processus d'approbation de crédit très long pour les prêts de plus de 25 millions de dollars. Les étapes comprennent l'examen de crédit, l'examen par l'équipe SWOT, la réunion du comité de prêt, puis la réunion du conseil. Nous avons franchi avec succès toutes ces étapes jusqu'à présent sans rencontrer de problème. La réponse de ADJO vous sera partagée vendredi, aussitôt que nous en serons informés. La deuxième étape, qui va débuter vers la fin 2026, à la fin de la construction, nous convertirons ce prêt en un prêt à terme, qui fonctionne un peu comme une hypothèque. Nous aurons la possibilité de décider de la durée du terme, de l'amortissement et du taux d'intérêt du jour nous sera offert. Sur cette troisième diapositive, nous vous présentons 3 risques financiers à considérer pour un projet de cette envergure. Tout d'abord, la limite annuelle de remboursement pour une municipalité en Ontario est de 25 % des revenus nets. De plus, notre politique interne de la municipalité de Russell est à 15 %. Comme vous le verrez dans les prochaines diapositives, nous dépasserons la limite interne au cours des premières années du prêt. Si tel est bien le cas, en 2026, nous devrons faire une demande de dérogation. Deuxièmement, la stratégie financière mise en place en 2019 réduit quelque peu ce risque, car un revenu de taxation serait utilisé pour couvrir une partie des paiements du prêt. Ainsi, à partir de 2028, près de 3,2 millions de dollars seront disponibles chaque année pour rembourser cette dette. Pour le reste des paiements, nous utiliserons les revenus d'ici. Il est donc très important que la municipalité continue de croître dans les prochaines années pour assurer la continuité de ses revenus. En mai 2024, nous avons déjà atteint près de 75 % de notre objectif en matière de revenus de DC, ce qui est très positif. De plus, notre étude sur les DC pour la municipalité doit être mise à jour en 2025, notamment pour tenir compte des taux d'inflation élevés observés ces dernières années. Troisièmement, le taux d'intérêt représente un très grand risque pour la municipalité. Comme vous pourrez le voir sur les prochaines diapositives, si nous prenions un prêt aujourd'hui, notre taux serait de 4,72 %. Tous les scénarios des prochaines diapositives sont basés sur ce taux. Cependant, les taux d'intérêt ont été très volatiles ces dernières années. Selon plusieurs experts, on peut s'attendre à une baisse des taux d'intérêt dans les prochaines années, mais rien n'est garanti. Une diminution de 1 % sur notre taux d'intérêt représente une économie de 13 millions de dollars en coûts d'intérêt sur les 25 prochaines années. En revanche, une augmentation de 1 % sur notre taux d'intérêt entraînera des coûts d'intérêt de plus de 14 millions de dollars sur la même période de paiement. En 2026, à la fin de la construction du REC Complex, nous prévoyons financer le projet global avec nos réserves et un prêt de 79 945 116 $. C'est la prochaine diapo. Nous avons créé 2 scénarios à des fins de comparaison pour évaluer les effets sur nos résultats financiers d'un prêt d'une durée de 25 ans et d'un prêt d'une durée de 30 ans. Dans le cas du terme de 30 ans, en comparaison avec le terme de 25 ans, nous paierons près de 40 000 $ de moins en paiement par mois, soit près de 465 000 $ en moins par année. Cependant, cette économie de paiement nous coûtera plus de 13 millions de dollars en frais d'intérêt, vu qu'on augmente la durée du prêt de 5 ans. Nous n'avons pas besoin de prendre cette décision aujourd'hui, mais si nous avons la liquidité pour faire les paiements sur 25 ans et que le budget opérationnel du complexe récréatif est positif, je recommanderais d'opter pour un prêt sur 25 ans. En revanche, si le budget opérationnel du complexe récréatif est négatif et que nous devons financer cette perte par le biais de la taxation, je recommanderais d'opter pour le terme de 30 ans. Voici un tableau qui démontre l'impact du nouveau prêt du REC Complex sur notre ratio d'endettement. Le premier scénario, un terme de 25 ans, démontre que nous serons au-dessus de notre limite interne de 1 296 950 $ en 2027. Nous prévoyons revenir sous cette limite interne en 2031. Si nous comparons l'impact du prêt du complexe récréatif par rapport à la limite provinciale, nous sommes 2 235 195 $ sous la limite. Sur la prochaine diapo, on voit le deuxième scénario, un terme de 30 ans, qui démontre que nous serons au-dessus de notre limite interne de 831 165 $ en 2027. Nous prévoyons revenir sous cette limite interne en 2030. Si nous comparons ce prêt avec la limite provinciale, nous sommes 2 700 980 $ sous la limite. Sur cette diapo, nous démontrons un budget opérationnel très high-level du complexe récréatif. Étant donné que le bâtiment n'a pas encore été construit et que nous n'avons présentement pas de bâtiment comme celui-là à la municipalité, nous nous sommes basés sur les revenus et les dépenses de nos arénas actuels et de notre salle, ainsi que sur une étude réalisée par Collier-Hanscom en 2021. Nous prévoyons un revenu de 1,4 million de dollars par année provenant de nos 3 glaces. Nous sommes arrivés à ce montant en additionnant les revenus de 2023 de l'Aréna de Russell, les revenus de 2023 de l'Aréna d'Embrun et en prenant une moyenne des 2 arénas pour la 3e glace. Nos glaces actuellement sont louées à capacité et nous devons refuser beaucoup de demandes. Nous n'avons pas d'inquiétude que la 3e glace sera occupée. Nous pourrons aussi offrir les services d'une glace à l'été si c'est nécessaire. En ce qui concerne les dépenses, nous avons inclus les dépenses des 2 arénas dans notre budget, ce qui est très conservateur de notre part. Il est certain que les nouvelles surfaces de glace seront plus efficaces et nous aurons des économies sur le staffing vu que les 3 glaces sont aux mêmes endroits. Pour les revenus de la piscine, nous avons majoré le revenu de la piscine extérieure de Russell sur 52 semaines. La piscine est beaucoup plus petite que ce qui est prévu dans le REC Complex, donc encore une fois, nous sommes confiants que nous atteindrons cet objectif. Pour les dépenses, nous n'avons actuellement aucun comparable à l'interne. Nous nous sommes donc fiés à l'étude faite par Collier-Hanscom en 2021 qui nous a donné un coût par pied carré et que nous avons indexé jusqu'en 2024. Pour les revenus de la salle, nous avons additionné les revenus actuels de la salle Camille Piché et ajouté les revenus des 2 petites salles situées dans les arénas. En ce qui concerne les dépenses, nous avons inclus les dépenses actuelles de la salle Camille Piché. Donc, en additionnant les revenus de ces 3 sources et les dépenses, on se retrouve avec un profit de 1 331 646 pour 2027. Dans ce million-là, on retrouve les contributions municipales de 2023 pour ces 3 bâtisses de 713 253. Donc, avec la stratégie financière qu'on a mise en place en 2019, on voit que le revenu de la taxation de 3 202 856 en 2028 qu'avec le 1 215 490 qui vient de les réserves de DC, puis le profit que le Rec Complex va faire, on se retrouve que ces trois revenus-là payent la totalité du paiement annuel d'un prêt de 25 ans. Sur la prochaine diapo, on voit le même travail, mais c'est avec le scénario 2, donc un prêt qui est sur 30 ans.
Je peux poser une question, Monsieur Dagenet? So I'm just confirming what you're telling us is that in 2028, based on your prediction or forecast for operations, we have a net income from operations that will cover not only the operations, but will cover the payments on the loans, along with the DCs, and then we'll be in the black. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, merci.
Sur la prochaine diapo, on parle d'autres risques qu'on peut rencontrer dans les prochaines années. J'en ai parlé un petit peu au début de la présentation, mais les coûts imprévus. Donc, les projets de construction sont souvent confrontés à des dépenses imprévues dues à divers facteurs, tels que des changements dans le scope du projet, des conditions de chantier inattendues ou des fluctuations de prix des matériaux et de la main-d'œuvre. Pour y remédier, un fonds de prévoyance de 5 % a été ajouté à notre budget pour nous aider à couvrir ces coûts imprévus. Il y a aussi le retard de la construction. Les retards dus à des problèmes de permis, des changements au scope du projet et des conditions météorologiques défavorables, à des retards de livraison de matériaux ou à des problèmes avec les entrepreneurs peuvent augmenter les coûts et prolonger la période de financement. Si les retards dépassent le début de la saison d'hiver 2026, nous pourrons être en mesure d'utiliser nos anciennes arénas pour desservir nos résidents, ce qui entraînera des coûts supplémentaires. Sur la prochaine diapo, on démontre 3 opportunités que ce projet nous apporte. Question d'octroi. Le nouveau budget de la province comprend une initiative importante connue sous le nom de Fonds communautaire pour les sports et les loisirs, qui vise à soutenir l'infrastructure communautaire de sport et de loisirs en Ontario. Avec une dotation de 200 millions de dollars, cette initiative offre une opportunité intéressante pour des projets comme le nôtre. Il y aura aussi l'exploration des revenus potentiels provenant de la vente ou de la location de nos actifs existants, tels que les arénas et la piscine extérieure de Russell, représentant une opportunité stratégique de croissance et d'optimisation financière. On peut aussi explorer des opportunités comme du sponsorship ou les naming rights pour le centre récréatif. Donc, en conclusion, nous recommandons de poursuivre le projet de construction et de ne pas modifier la stratégie financière pour l'instant, car de nombreux facteurs peuvent jouer en notre faveur dans les prochaines années, dont la tendance à la baisse des taux d'intérêt, la possibilité de choisir une durée de 30 ans et l'impact des coûts de construction imprévus. Lors des discussions au budget 2026, nous allons avoir une idée plus précise de la date de fin de construction du projet et des coûts de construction imprévus, ce qui nous donnera le temps d'ajuster la stratégie financière si nécessaire. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Dagenet. C'est bien apprécié, très bien détaillé. Merci. So I just want to kind of reiterate a couple of points, and please correct me if I'm wrong. So really, there are 2 parts to this, 2 very important parts. Now, the awarding, obviously, the tender, but on the finance piece, we have the costs during construction, and then in 2026, we will negotiate a long-term debt repayment for this project. And so until then, we have the flexibility of making that decision for 25 to 30 years, depending on interest rates at that time and so on. That's correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
The other thing too is based on what we have presented in front of us, we are looking at a debt of about, or a project, or a loan, I should say, of about 80 million, notwithstanding any potential grants that we may receive between now and 2026, and or any other private partnerships or sponsorships and so on, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. And then in terms of the debt ratio that you're looking at, where we're going to be between 26 and 30, where we're over our self-imposed limit, are there any other planned infrastructure or risks around infrastructure costs that we should be aware of, that should be taken at that time, that should be happening at that time, that may have an impact on that debt? And maybe Mr. Bourgon, or, because I know we're doing all the master plan studies now and everything else, so I just,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's a great question. And so, yes, there are some master plans being worked on, and we are aware of some investments in the near future for increased capacity. So that's another reason why it's important to show these graphs to council, to show that we do still have somewhat of a cushion between our self-imposed limit and the provincial limit of 25%. But it's definitely good to be cognizant of that, of certain investments to come up, be it wastewater or stormwater. We're working hard on developing those long-term plans, and those are, we are working towards being able to do these projects without needing to incur additional debt, without promising that there will be zero additional debt. We do feel comfortable that this leaves us sufficient space for that.
okay. I'm going to open it up to the rest of council for questions. Ms. Conseiller Deacon, go ahead.
Merci. J'apprécie beaucoup la présentation, aussi l'approche conservative avec les chiffres. There was just one area that I was wondering about. The slides, one of them referred to the importance of the municipality maintaining the same growth rates as in recent years. So I would just like to hear, I want to make sure that we're taking a conservative approach as well when it comes to development charges. If you could speak to that, I would appreciate it.
Through you, Monsieur Godet.
Yes, we did had that discussion internally, and currently we find our future DC revenue projection very conservative compared to the result of recent years. By the end of May 24, we have already reached 75% of our DC revenue target for the Parks and Rec for 2024. This indicates that we can expect to surpass our target this year. Additionally, our DC study for the township is due to be updated in 25, especially to adjust for the high inflation rate experienced in recent years.
Councillor Deacon, follow-up?
I've got a question on one of the other schedules. I could ask it now or I could ask it later.
Go ahead.
Just referring to, I think it's Schedule A, the resolution amendment. Just looking for some clarification on the seating capacity of rinks 2 and 3. Was that determined before November 9th or after November 9th, 2023? It doesn't say explicitly in the amendment, and I want to be sure that it's clear for myself as well as the public.
Through you, Mr. Godet.
Yep. Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Deacon. So those, for rink 2 and 3, so rink 2 has a capacity of 125 seats plus some standing. Rink 3 is 117 plus, I think it's 80 standing. Those numbers were already part of the design prior to November. So that's why we wanted to mention this in this report. We're correcting the resolution because on November 9th, I think it was, the resolution that was adopted by council was that we would decrease the capacity for the rink number 1 from 750 to 250, matching the other two arenas. At that point in time in November, we didn't correct that statement during the meeting. That was an oversight. Those numbers were actually not 250 for the other two arenas, so we wanted to clarify that in this report here to kind of set the record straight and have that correction on file.
Councillor Deacon, any follow-up?
Je vous remercie pour cette clarification. And I just want to say thank you for the question that you asked about the greater infrastructure picture. I know I'll have some follow-up conversations with staff, but I think that it was really important to get that on the table tonight as well. So
Thank you.
that's it for me. Merci.
Merci. Any other questions? Councillor Lauren?
I'll start with something that we just talked about. So the resolution that is being updated, can we update as well on that and remove the A from the junior room just for clarity purposes? We do not have a junior A team, and we haven't entered into an agreement with anybody, so that room at the back that was removed was the junior room, not necessarily a junior A room. It could have been the junior B room if that was the case. So just want, just for clarity's sake, let's remove the A since we're making a modification, because to me it was the junior room. That's the first aspect. Second one, to the point of Councillor Deacon's growth rates discussion. I'm glad that we're being conservative on that, and we've got many developments that are in the development stage and are moving forward and are going to be moving forward very quickly in our community, with the Bank of Canada lowering their key interest rate recently, and with the trend of that going down, I foresee mortgage rates also following that trend, and therefore, more people being able to hopefully get into the home ownership or rentals, depending on what type of development we're doing. So I think that's a positive as well from a development perspective. Therefore, development charges would continue to maintain. I'm not going to say grow, but let's say maintain, like you mentioned. So that's a positive as well. The other point that I had was, this one's for Monsieur Godin, and we talk about the land being one of the additional costs. Do we still have a loan on the land that we purchased for that property?
Through Mr. Mayor, so no, those funds are actually, those costs are financed, but we did want to present a full picture of the cost of the rec complex, so it includes the land costs. When we're showing the financing, we are including a piece of that that's already been spent. So we've, from the rec complex reserves, be it DCs or the reserve fund, there is, I think, and Mr. Dagenet can correct me if I'm wrong, but about $5 million of that has already been spent.
Of this 18?
Of the 18, exactly.
Okay.
So that's all taken into account in there, as well as the consultant fees and.
Is it possible to add a little footnote going for the next meeting, so that we can say that these are not additional costs to be incurred, but they include all costs, including costs that have already been incurred? I think that's an important.
Yeah, we've taken note of that for sure.
Okay, thank you. The only other thing is, I noticed in the Schedule C, and I think there was some communication this afternoon on that. If we can just make sure we clarify that the numbers for attendance that were in that report were for Junior B, not Junior C, just so that we're clear on where those numbers came from. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Monsieur Lalonde?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to reiterate a few of the things that were said actually earlier. One was to that reassurance that the other infrastructure, stormwater, drain management, those big items, big ticket items, are all being considered while we consider this, so I'm glad to hear that. I mean, you could add roads, road rehabilitation of that as well. There's so much to be done, and everyone seems to expect that more will be done in each year, and the cost of all of that. So certainly those are big expenses. The industrial park issue as well, adding to that. I'm glad we're thinking of that. I'm glad to hear that, as the DC charges, that as of May, we're already at 75%. I mean, that's what I was hoping to hear, that even though there'll be another study in 2025 that we're well ahead of the game right now, which we would need to be. The 5% contingency that township has put in, I guess that's on top of whatever the building company has put into its 86 million itself, which I hope is a healthy contingency in there. I guess we can find that out in the coming few days. I'll have some questions to ask on that. So then understood that in the 18 million on slide 1, the other costs to consider when we talk about land, I guess, so all the preloading costs are all included there, already incurred, as well as architect fees and project management. That's all in there. So that's, yeah. Okay, so that's all I have for now as questions. But thanks for the detail, especially the options to consider, the 25 or the 30 year.
Merci, Conseiller Lalonde. Councillor Lauren.
So Councillor Lalonde brings up a good point too with the contingency, whether it's within the 86 million or the township 5%, that allows us, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that allows us some flexibility to work with the general contractor, with the McDonald Brothers, to see how we may be able to make subtle changes to some of the building itself, as has been discussed with people that have come to talk to us and whatnot. Not a full-blown redesign, but operational modifications, a little bit of, maybe move a wall here or a door there kind of thing, as long as it still fits within the confines of the building or the infrastructure. Is that accurate or no?
Through
Through
you, Mr.
Mr. Mayor, so not quite. So the construction contingency is really in place to mitigate to those unforeseen events that could happen. There is also what you would call, and the consultants can correct me if I'm wrong, I think they were referred to as a client contingency, which we don't have built into this financial plan, which would be for change orders based on requests from the township and stuff like that. So if we were to do that, I would recommend that that if there was a change that we wanted to consider, we can cost it out and bring a report to council to show what the actual impact is on the financial plan. And that 5% contingency would kind of be built on top of that. So it's not quite a contingency that's there to be able to change the scope and make some additions. It's really there to be responsible as far as the potential unforeseen costs that can incur during a construction of this magnitude.
Okay, thank you.
So could we get clarification if there is contingency built into the 86 million, into the tender that we received?
So the $86 million is essentially the bid from the GC. So that's what they're tied to. So that's if they're delivering as per specs, they can invoice us $86 million. I'm sure they have their own contingencies worked into that, but that doesn't really impact us as a township. We can't expect to have some savings if they've saved on material and stuff like that.
Okay.
In that sense, it's really a lump sum amount that they're bidding.
So for clarification purposes, when we receive a tender like this, if we make no changes whatsoever, they cannot come back to us and say, hey, it's $2 more than what we said it was. Is that correct? Okay.
That's correct. So any changes to that amount would have to be approved by township ahead of time. It could happen that if there was an oversight or something in the specifications, that they come back to us and say, is this really what you want? And then we say no. I mean, we're not expecting that. I mean, a lot of work has been put into this project and the tender documents, but there in two-year construction of this magnitude, there could be some surprises, and it is possible that we have to make use of that 5% contingency that we've put in there. But any change order is approved in advance from the township, and it's also validated and verified by our project manager, who's going to be keeping a close eye on, just to make sure that change orders are costed appropriately and that our interest is protected in that sense.
Okay, Councillor Lalonde.
Just one last request for clarification, and it has to do with the indoor pool facility. I had asked, just wanted to be reminded, because it goes back far enough, and we didn't talk about it too much during the meetings, but about the potential seating capacity inside the pool facility. So I just wanted to be reminded again of what kind of room we had in there, because I know from looking at the drawings, c'est pas aussi évident dans les dessins, mais peut-être through Richard to Madame Guittard, just to remind me again of just about how much seating capacity there is inside the pool facility.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So if you're talking seating capacity when there's competition, a number of seating would be 57 plus 2 barrier-free. Because you have to remember that these people will be coming in with their dirty shoes, boots, whatever. So we've had this, I think it's north of the pool. And then when it's only bathers, we will have 160 seating capacity plus 4 barrier-free. So if you're only having bathers and there's no public from outside, at this point, it will like almost double, triple the capacity. Because there's no, it's like they're barefoot, so that they don't have their shoes or their boots. And also you have to remember that there's about another 70 seat capacity in the hallway, which is viewing right directly in the pool. So.
Councillor?
So that 57 or so with the public, is that fixed seating, or is there some sort of a pull-out, retractable?
I will just double check with my architect.
Address the group, or, yes.
If you can just come up to the podium, just, we may have people listening on.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Luke Duras. I'm with MJMA Architects. Yeah, to answer the question, we have a single bench that runs around 3 of the 4 sides of the pool. On the north side of the pool, we have a single tiled bench that, when the pool is being used for spectator purposes, can be stanchioned off with a temporary belt stanchion, and visitors can sit on this tiled bench and watch one of the events.
Is that,
Does that answer the question?
I'm not sure that I understood that. When you said it could be sectioned off, like it doesn't come out, they don't become des estrades, comme on dit. It's just like,
No,
they're
it's-
not bleachers per se.
That's right. It's a permanent fixed bench.
Okay,
Typical comfortable bench height. It's tiled for waterproofing purposes. So visitors would come from the lobby through a designated entrance into the pool, and then they'd have this long extent of bench to be seated on permanent seating to watch an event.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor, yeah. Okay, so unless there are any change orders, that's our price, and we're good to go if we can finance that price. Now, we've had some discussions. We've had a group come last week with some ideas and concerns and stuff like that. So how does council look at that in trying to see if that could be addressed or not?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I might invite our project manager to speak on this to better articulate it. What I can say is it would depend on the change that we want to evaluate. I think we can consider some small changes, and there can be some larger changes. Obviously, at this point in time, nothing's moved, nothing's done, everything is possible, but it can come with significant costs and delays. So, Mr. Lecary, I don't know if you could touch on that just to give a bit more feedback.
Good evening, folks. My name is Ray LeCarron, Project Manager of Record on behalf of Russell Township for this project. So yes, the question came up, I guess about a week or so ago, and as a project manager, I've got to provide you guys a rationale as to what changes can and can't be put in a project that has gone on for about 2 years of design. So, as Richard has indicated, there's more minor changes can be evaluated and discussed with the contractor, knowing that whatever changes are made, however minor they are, you're gonna get a credit from the original design for less than the value of what is being built if you build a new arranged change, if you understand what that means.
No.
So you will have, let's say, change rooms. You wanna change a couple of the change rooms. The contractor will go back into their records, their cost estimates. They will credit what they're not going to build, and then they're gonna charge you what they are gonna build based on the new design. When I call it a credit, you're not getting the full 100% credit because it's a lump sum arrangement that the contractor has to manage. When you're discussing a bigger change such as the seating, you're gonna require more space. In order to have more space, you gotta bump out the building on, I believe it's the east side, right where the entrance is, by X number of feet to accommodate the amount of seating that's gonna be put in place. The collateral costs related to that are, you've gotta do a full soil improvement review. You gotta prepare for the construction of that. You gotta prepare for the expansion of the building, all mechanical, electrical implications, and delay in schedule. Because in order for them to do that type of work, they can't very well build the foundation if they don't have the final foundation design approved by council. So the costs related to that, again, we run into the credit. You get a certain credit for what hasn't been built, not to its full extent, but you will be charged the extra change costs to build the expansion. The design on it, I'm gonna say, could be 2 to 3, 4 months in order to ensure that you're accommodating the growth that is being put in. The construction delay could be anywhere from another 3 to 4 months, maybe 5 months. So you're pushing your September 2026 date out. With that all, there's cost implications because of it. Contractor's now exposed. He'll have to wait till design is completed. He's foregone other projects that he could potentially have done in favor of holding tight on this. What can happen, and I'm not saying it would happen, they may be in a position legally to put in a delay claim because they're foregoing costs out on the market. And when it was brought to my attention, I will say on record, I vehemently disapproved of it because I'm a project manager. You assigned me to make sure that I hit a schedule and a budget that is going to be carried out for the full term of the project. So I see a change like that as being somewhat large. It's not changing rooms, it's changing the complex as a whole. And it requires extra fees from the designer to design what they have to design and any other consultant that is connected to the project. So it seriously has to be looked at in 3 major veins, if I can use that term. Schedule delay, cost encumbrance, additional cost encumbrance, that could be $7 to $10 million, and the fact that you're not going to be able to open your complex to start your revenue when you need to.
Quick clarification. I'll ask the obvious question. We can't just do it within the existing envelope or footprint that we
No,
can't just
hopefully
go up,
we can.
up in height?
No, I mean, to jump in, I can.
If you don't mind, yeah, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Yeah, so just to touch on that question, can the additional program just be introduced into the building? You know, I think because we understood that the project was, you know, very budget-minded, you know, we put a huge amount of effort to make every square foot as efficient as we can. So to simply ask to introduce new scope or capacity or program into the building really isn't possible unless we expand the building. And, you know, we did go through value engineering exercises earlier in the project to reduce, you know, seating capacity and things like that. And these were, with the primary strategy was to reduce the overall building area, which is the primary driver of cost. So to add programs such as what was discussed, it would necessitate expanding the building.
Okay, thank you very much. All right,
If I
oh,
may, I want
please.
to add one last point. If a change of this nature is launched, it should be known, and I'm not saying this would happen, but it's a scenario. Contractor's going to be delayed from doing the work. He may turn around because he hasn't mobilized. He may turn around and just put in that they aren't gonna do the project. Something else has come up in their favor, and what you're doing is you're jeopardizing the potential of a budget that came in on or close to budget versus any future tendering that you might have to do because you don't have a contractor to deliver anymore.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Laurie?
Yeah, just a question about, and I don't know who would have an answer to this, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in the main rink from a seating capacity, 256 seats. Now, these are actual little bum seats that are gonna be in there. Is it feasible to put bench seating in to accommodate for some additional capacity? Is that an option that we would have without changing too much of the project?
It's a good question. We chose and specified bench seats or like bucket seats that were quite efficient in size. So to replace them or substitute them with a bench, based on Ontario Building Code requirements, we would have the exact same capacity. So we selected our bucket seats to be the minimum Ontario prescribed width per spectator. So we're changing from a bucket to a bench. It's still the same number of people.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions, members of council? All right, anything else from you, Monsieur Godin, before we move to questions?
Non, merci, Monsieur le Maire.
Okay, thank you. All right, so again, this is information that's being received for us to mull over the next week to look at. This will be brought back next week for a decision. And so we'll move ahead to item number 5, question period on meeting of the day. So, les questions doivent porter sur le point de l'ordre du jour. Before asking a question, please fill out your name and address on the sign-in sheet. If you wish to receive a response from the member of council or staff, please leave a phone number and email on the sheet. Annoncez uniquement votre nom avant de poser vos questions. And by asking questions during council meetings, you are consenting to be part of the live broadcast and the official public recording of the proceedings. So thank you very much. We can go on with questions of the public.
I'll fill that out so as not to delay the meeting at all.
Thank you.
Charles Armstrong, 85 Casabo. I'm concerned about slides 6 or 7. They're the graphs. Is it possible, in the interests of transparency and responsible government, et cetera, that we can see the foreseeable impacts of other major capital investments that we have to make on our debt borrowing capacity at the time? And I'm specifically mentioning or thinking in my mind the 100 million plus that we're looking at for the wastewater treatment, because that could have a big difference in people's mind and what people would make comments on to council about this particular project. And realizing, of course, that we're early in the project, but remembering that 6 years ago, this project was estimated at 55 million and was a much more extensive facility. So you would have, I expect, a conservative figure which would have a very large budget, and a more liberal one that would say we get it in less. But that's what I would think we would like to see to make comments to you.
Okay, so Mr. Armstrong, let me just clarify to make sure that that we're all on the same page. So what you are asking is a little bit like the questions that we asked early on pertaining to this. This image is showing our debt capacity, and it just assumes all the debt that's in our portfolio and the forecasted debt of any infrastructure projects. Can we get those a little more detail around that debt? Because we're not just looking at the debt for the rec complex here, we're looking at the cumulative township debt. Is that something that we can see? Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Dagenet?
I can let Mr. Dagenet speak to it afterwards. For myself, what I can say is that all the anticipated debt that we do have in the future is in here. At this point in time, we don't plan on having additional debt. We do understand that there are some challenges to evaluate as far as future infrastructure needs to respond to capacity or to increase or improve our levels of services. Though a lot of those projects are really at the beginning stages where sure, we have some round figures that we're looking at, but we're really working hard with at trying to be creative at ways that we can have those investments made in a more efficient manner in collaboration with partners in other municipalities or other ways. So all this to say, I think it's a great question and it's a great point that Mr. Armstrong brings up. And where we could see those future discussions as far as those future investments go would be to have this graphic kind of a baseline to be able to make those decisions on those investments and to see what that impact has on the future of this graph, if you will. What we don't see here, and just to give a bit of perspective, because the numbers here are really based on, and I just want to clarify that, I think council understands that, but just for the public's benefit as well. For example, in 2027, when we see our maximum provincial limit is of $8.8 million, and we're anticipating to be at 5.2 million, so there's a gap, or there's about $3.6 million left. That's not a $3.6 million loan. That would be
No,
an
that's
annual payment,
yeah.
which in 2027 might be around 60 million. But just wanted to give that context, just to clarify those numbers. And I don't know if Mr. Dagenet, you have any further context to add to that.
Well, I was just gonna add that we could send we could explain what the current loans, what they are and what they represent.
So I think just to get a sense of clarity, and I think what Mr. Armstrong, and correct me, Mr. Armstrong, if I'm wrong on this, but the idea to understand, so for example, if we have space for another 300 million in debt, let's say, as a number for that debt repayment amount, what are some of the projects that are kind of currently calculated in our debt ceiling? Just so, and I think council would benefit from that as well, just to have that information, to know that, what is the risk of something major coming up? And we're, let's say in 2026, 2027, and we need to add an extra $2 million of debt repayment. Is that a risk? And where are we at with that? Okay.
Yes, no problem.
Councilor.
I'll send you the information, and 1 or 2 days we'll do the analysis and we'll add the information.
Okay, Councilor Laurie?
Yeah, and I think it is important to lay out what the green is, and maybe on a legend on the side, because I think most of that green is our water project, right? User fee based, and any other wastewater type of things would again be user fee based versus a taxation based project like the other projects that we're talking about. I think that would be great, and the fact that we get this chart like this, similarly in our budget every year, I think if we continue to maintain that in the budget process, you're going to see those types of things because you're going to add it on, right?
Yeah, and my concern is wastewater is a good one. If we don't get that done right, then future development charges and our other taxation revenue increases that are increasing our debt capacity limit are not realized.
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Armstrong.
Rhonda Bradley, 159 Edie Road. My question is whether the money that would be required to do the Embrun branch of the library is included in the proposed debt limit.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley. Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Dagenet?
At this point, we're not planning on doing any loans for the library.
Thank you.
Does that mean that the library project would be put on hold or paused indefinitely?
I don't think this relates to the fact that it would be paused. There may be other avenues that are being explored at this point. Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Dagenet, if you want to.
Well, I don't believe that this project will put a hold on the relocation of the library.
Thank you. Councillor Lauren?
Yeah, I would like to know whether it's possible, and hopefully before next Monday, and this is more towards Madame Guitar and the consultants, is I know about a year and a half ago, you had created a wonderful deck outlining everything that was going to be in the complex. And a lot of people are still using that old deck, even though we've modified it on a couple of different occasions. With the fact that the tender's been put out and we know exactly what everything's going to look like, and is it possible to have that deck redone and posted on our website as the product versus having an old document sitting there, and if somebody goes to look at it and they're going to go, well, wait a minute, why don't we have this? Well, that was taken out. Why don't we have this? So I'm just looking for an updated document that we can present to the public so that everything is as transparent as possible with all the changes. Thank you.
Monsieur Godin, I'll let you answer that or through you, Madame Guital. But I do believe that everything is there because of transparency, so it shows the evolution and process. So all the documents need to be there. And there's always that danger that someone's looking at the wrong document. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think everything's been updated. It's always by date. And so we do have some of the initial plans and so on. Madame Guital?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So if you look at every update that has been presented to council, obviously the concept was always included. So the updated concept was always part of the report. If you look maybe at the main page, yes, maybe we could tweak a little bit there. But as MJME was always present when we did the updates, and they always presented an updated concept. So, but you had to go through the council reports.
Councillor Lauren, follow up?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying. We tell people to go to the website and go to the recreation page to find the information, the most up-to-date information. If I go there right now, I'm not going to see an updated version of a deck showing what we're getting. I'm going to see the old version of a deck from 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, and I think that's caused some frustrations with the public. So I get that there's updated drawings of a certain thing, but there's not a deck like the one that was presented previously that we can point the members of the public to. So my question was, can we have something like that uploaded to the website before Monday night of next week so that people can see it?
Monsieur Godin, Madame Guital?
Yeah,
Yeah.
try to do that.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Deakin. Before we go to your question, Councillor Deakin, I'd like to propose we suspend the rules of procedure so that we can extend this question period. We do have the time till 6:30. Do I have to get a mover and a seconder for that? Yeah. So moved by Councillor Deakin, seconded by Councillor Lauren. All in favor? Thank you. So we'll just proceed with knowing that we have to be out of here by 6:30. Thank you. Councillor Deakin, you had a question?
More of a comment building on Councillor Lauren. Excuse me. There's the plan and the product, and then there's the story. And I've always, as a marketing person, wanted to see what the story is of the complex. Just to remind as well that there was a fantastic video walkthrough done in the winter that I believe would be the most up-to-date program in the complex. Monsieur Dagenet was speaking earlier about some of the operational activity that's happening in our current recreational facilities and community halls, which Councillor Lauren's comment has me thinking about sponsorship and as well just the story of the complex for members of the community. So if there were work to be done in the next week, taking shots from that video or modifying the video or coming up with a new deck entirely, I don't think that it's ever too early to start telling the story of how this rec complex is going to impact our community in such a positive way. So if that work is being put in the next week, I would suggest that that be included as well.
Thank you. Any comments to that? Mr. Godin?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. Maybe just a question of clarification. I'm not sure I understood. So, did you mean to update the video? And is that what I understood?
Councillor Deacon?
It's not for me to say which
Right.
asset in terms of marketing pieces that would be best for the administration to use, but if some effort were to be put in, just that I would like those aspects around what sort of programming will happen in the complex, how many people are expected to be participating, what this complex enables for our community. Just to start, I know we're thinking about sponsorship and grants, that it could be another piece that would support that in addition to the community buy-in.
Thank you.
Through Mr. Mayor, so I think that's a wonderful idea, and I agree it's never too early to tell a story and to use that material as a selling point, and to also rally the community around this project. I don't know that we'll be able before next Monday to have some major changes on the website, but definitely it's point taken as far as the comms piece of this project and to
Merci
see about
beaucoup.
improving.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Godin. Okay, let's move on with questions. It's all right. C'est bon, juste de là.
C'est correct. Alors, Philippe Ryan, 1147 Saint-Joseph at Embrun. And I like your word, Mrs. Deacon. They're so inspiring, the story, right? And our new rec complex is way more than a brick and mortar. I think it's the moment where Embrun, Russell, Marionville, and Limoges truly becomes one, right? Hockey, the rec center, figure skating, broomball sports, arts. I mean, they unite Canadians. And we have the township of a typical Canadian small town. It will unite French and English, like the same way Yvan Cournoyer jumped in Paul Anderson's arms when we beat the Russians at the 72 summit. You might remember, right? So I think you're responsible for building way more than a complex here. It'll be our way of life for many of us, many of our sons and our grandchildren. And sometimes impossible become possible when one starts to dream. So here's my question. If the community wants to raise the amount missing, to bring back a female and or a male elite room, and the sitting back to at least 500 seating and 300 standing places, the same way Castleman has it right now. In order for Russell Township to compete at the same level, Rockland, Castleman, Kentville. I think we're playing against other teams, and I just wish that we would have something similar. Maybe not something 2,000 more, maybe not 2,000 seating capacity or 3,000 like some of our competitor arenas are. Just bring it back to what it was originally, 750 or 500, but at least so that we can compete against neighboring arenas. Am I allowed to ask more than one question?
Well, let me just address that question. So, thank you very much for the question. Council did go through a process where we had to make difficult decisions because of cost. And as you can see now, even with those difficult decisions, where we did reduce an entire floor and made substantial changes, we're still coming pretty much close to our capacity of what we can and can't do here at the township. And as inspiring as your words are, and they are inspiring, and I would love to support that, we have our subject matter experts here that are telling us that we're looking at major delays and substantial costs in even looking at adding 100 seats. And so I'm challenged by that, and I'm sure council will be over the next week trying to figure out how we address that. And so, that's going to be a challenging question to ask. If we look at the facts of the numbers that were in, that have been coming to games, and we're looking at realistically the costs that we are being told here, we are stewards of the community purse, if you want, and we have to make those decisions based on that, and that's the challenge. And I'm not saying that we don't want to, because I can tell you I'd love to have 700 seats, and but that's going to be a difficult part of our week ahead, trying to make that decision. I don't know if any other councillor wants to speak to that, but Councillor Lauren.
Bonjour, Mr. Ryan. We've had many discussions, I think, over the years about the seating of the facility. And while I completely agree that I would have loved to see additional seating up to 750, 500, 750, the reality of the project at this point was, what is the need of the community? And the need of the community was ice. We need the availability of ice time. And to ensure that we had the 3 ice pads, that was one of the difficult decisions we had to make. Is it more important to have, at least for me, I'm not speaking for the rest of council, is it more important to have the additional ice in the facility or extra seating to have spectators every so often in the facility for certain major events? And to me, that decision was simple, with the fact that we want to make sure that we had ice for the users, which are the minor sports users. Junior, total different animal. Minor sports are probably going to be utilized in that facility about 95% of the time, those 3 facilities. So to ensure that they had a place to play versus having a facility that may seat 400 or 500 people 5-6 times a year, I had to make that decision. At least for me, that was where my thought process was when we made that decision. And while I agree, I would love to have the extra seating, I love more the fact that we're going to have the extra facility, the extra ice pad in our facility. And yes, we have 2 other facilities, and people say, well, then keep one open. But the operational costs we're talking about, Mr. Dejna talked about earlier, the savings of the operational cost of closing those facilities, having it all as one, that is what pushes us forward with that. I would love to have the additional seating, and unfortunately, I just don't think we can at this point, based on the consultant's comments earlier of millions of dollars in delay costs, potential litigation matters, and whatnot. Could you raise the money? I mean, we're probably about 1.5 years too late for that, unfortunately. So that would be my comment.
And that'll be a decision next week that council brings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
I mean, raising the money, if it's too late, I find it unfair as a community member, because 6 months ago, we were not talking about this. Well, 7 months ago, we were not talking about this. It was not, the seating capacity was not reduced.
Order.
And I'd just like to restate my question. If the committee wants to raise the money, apart from the budget that you have set, would you consider pushing the starting date?
So let's just go back. So thank you for your question. Let's just go back and just reiterate the points that were made in terms of the impact of us slowing everything down and stopping it. So if I can just ask you to just, we'll let Mr. Lecari, right? Yeah, come up and just kind of restate. So if if the community says, you know what, we're going to fundraise $10 million and we're we want this and we want to work hard to do this. What is, and this is for council because we're going to make a decision on this. Again, if you can restate the impact of us saying, well, let's pull the brakes, we're going to wait, and we're going to raise $10 million, and we'll be ready in the fall, maybe.
So if that were the case, we would have to sit down with the architects to find out what the delay, sorry, let me go back a step. First, we'd have to have a sit-down with the prospective GC that's going to be delivering the project, explain to them the scenario that has been tabled, hoping that they completely understand what the objective is here. I don't know what that answer is going to be from them. I gave you a summation of what I think it will be. That company forewent trying to get other projects because they wanted this one. And in my professional opinion, their pricing of the project, it was obvious they wanted the job. We, from first place to second place, was a $5 million savings. The second cost came in at over budget. Would we be in a scenario that we could go to company number 2? I doubt it. There'd be a potential litigation there if we even tendered that possibility, unless McDonald decided to pull out entirely, to forego going to another project, which I doubt they want to do. There's the potential of delay claims if they decide to stay in the picture and wait for design to be completed and for the project extension at the end to be taken into consideration. Every month or two that you have in a delay as it relates to not moving forward impacts the contractor and it impacts the township. Long and short, dollars and cents that are not really seen at the beginning but are encountered as you progress with the project going forward. Then we'd have to sit down with the architects, find out what the period of time is required to design out the expansion to providing a 750 seat capacity. I am guessing, and you can correct me, Luke, if I'm wrong, you're looking at about 2, 3, 4 months of design work. Again, there's an extension of the schedule that's going to be desired if we're not going to look at September 2026 anymore. There's a fee, if I'm correct, there's a fee to do the design, and there's an impact on other consultants that are working with our prime consultant who will invariably put in a request for extra fees to do the work. Then you've got to start the exercise of working with your consultants on the soil improvement, which was an issue on this site, and we took measures last fall to include a contractor to come in and start surcharging the site to compress the soils. That was based on a design that we presently have now. If we change the design by bumping out the building, in whatever manner we do, we have to revisit that soil improvement consultant work that was done, have to redesign it, and I'm assuming we'd have to put in design measures to accommodate because we haven't surcharged that expansion. So there may be a delay there also. Then there is going back to the contractor, asking the contractor to mobilize at some point 4 to 6 months from now so that they can continue work at that time. I go back to the original point, will the contractor wait? They may turn around and just walk away from the job. We don't know that. But given the fact that they have priced it like they have, they may have some notion to hold on to doing the project at a later date. But if they don't, you must go back out to the market for a new tender because you've got a new design that's going to change more than 10% of the initial design that's there. The complications, as you can see them, are sequential, and one thing rolls into another, and it pushes out your date, potentially, when you start the work, anywhere from 6 months to a year, slowing down your potential for revenue to cover the project. Then you go back out to the street. We have to go to as many GCs as we can as we have. We went to 13. We came up with 8 that wanted to bid it. 3 bid. That's telling me that the market's getting really busy. There's a potential in the future that if it's getting busy, cost increases are going up. Interest rates are going down. but cost increase for construction are going up, and there's more projects that are coming to fruition. Another complication. So it just compounds itself as you go forward. I mean, the first step is sit down with the contractor and say, are you willing to look at this?
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for the clarification. Mr. Ryan? Oh, sorry. Sure.
Just a footnote to that.
Yeah.
Just to speak again to some of the risks with delaying the project in the event that the bidders were to withdraw their tender bids. I just wanted to kind of add, in our office's experience post-COVID, this is the first project that we've seen tender where bidders have submitted to very reasonably attractive bids. We've seen other projects, similar projects, tender for substantially higher numbers, 10, 20% over budget. So to kind of add to Ray's point, if another tender were to take place, there's no guarantees that you would get such an attractive number. I think that's quite an astonishing accomplishment, so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. DeRoss. Mr. Ryan?
Yes, I'd like to add to some of the comment. It was a beautiful segue. I mean, if we had a reasonable price and we are thinking ahead 50 years, let's take advantage of it. I mean, everything evolves. We know that there's pressures already to have an elite club in this town. And in the current plans, is there the capacity to add the seating capacity later on and the elite room or the elite room for women and men after? Is that built in such a way that we will be able to grow?
So, right here, look at me here. So I think the growth part for the main rink, I think, is limited based on what was discussed here. I think for additional change room, we do have a warm-up room that could serve multiple purposes. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm cognizant of time here, so I just want to maybe a quick jump in on that. There is some sort of warm-up room in there that we could utilize that space, but yeah, that as long as we're within the envelope, I think there are things that could be done, but outside of that, it seems like council will have to make a very difficult decision. Mr. Ryan?
In conclude, because I could speak here for an hour, trying to convince you, I'm sure, knowing that it will affect us for many generations. I understand that it was said that maybe we would need 2, 3, 4 months and some delays. But for the next 50 years, I think it would be well worth it to
Thank you.
restudy it.
Thank you. All right, I'll take a last question.
Monsieur le maire, merci beaucoup. Madame la conseillère, Monsieur Lalonde, Monsieur Lorrain, thank you very much for having me. I want to make sure to understand all the public here that we have a petition going with 3,000 citizens that wish to express their concern. And more likely, we want to probably, like Councillor Lorrain mentioned, that we want to do some modification within the building and not expand the foundation. Okay? More likely, yes, the sitting room are issue, also the dressing rooms, which are basically one major topic. And I see Councillor Lalonde has an issue with sitting room with his pool. So there is issues here. And we want to address, and we're going to take more likely until June 24th to probably send you emails and make some proposal that may help you save money.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Madame,
Merci.
Councillor.
Okay, I really have another minute or so, maybe one more question, I'm sorry. And then any other questions, if you can just send them to the township through one of the councillors, and we'll make sure to address the questions. Please.
All right, I'm Steph Levier. I've lived in Nimrin pretty much all my life, played junior hockey here. I'm a teacher in Calsman, phys ed teacher. I also worked with the Ottawa Junior Centers for the past 12 years. I've worked with junior hockey for the past 14 years. I've had that experience, and I've studied it with Martin Dagenet, who some of you might know. I know we've been talking about and worried about fans and who's going to be, how many people are going to attend games and all that. And to be honest, that's probably the last thing that I'd be worried about. I'm not, with knowing Inbrim and Russell and the community here with the ownership coming in, and you're able to do, public appearances and all that, I'm not worried about attendance. I'm just, I'm asking about tenants. Have you guys thought about tenants? You're gonna have 3 pads. I know that this community really wants 3 pads, and there's a need for 3 pads. Junior A hockey and junior B, there's towns that have both, Brockville and Carlton Place, by the way.
Your question. I have to ask you for your question.
Yep, here's my question. So have you thought about tenants? Like, if you look at the junior A, they rent between 7 and 11 hours of ice time at 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, where our ice pads will probably be free. So right there, you've got, if you have a 10-year buy, you've got tenants for 10 years and a lot of ice time. That's including camps and including all things. So as the tenants
So have we looked at, so your question is, have we looked at all the revenue options around junior A possibly, and
tenants
everything?
just renting
Yes.
ice and
Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Dagenet, I think in our models,
Oui, merci, Monsieur Mayor. So I feel confident that we're exploring all the potential.
those are
revenue
included in
options.
all our financials. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to move ahead. I'm going to shut it down for now. I'm sorry, because we have a planning meeting coming, so we do have to go quickly through. Councillor Deakin? Yeah, okay. So we'll go to number 6, resolutions. Did we, so I was gonna, okay. So the resolution was amended?
It will need to be amended if you want to amend it. So we'll need to put the main on the floor.
Okay, and I apologize to the planning committee. Will be a couple more minutes. Councillor Lauren? Okay, so Councillor Lauren moves to put the resolution on the table. I need a seconder. Seconded by Conseiller Lalonde. So the resolution's on the table. Present an amendment.
Is that for the?
Yes, for the November 11th change.
So for Schedule A, I'm asking that we remove the A from junior room. And on the Schedule C, to change the junior C to junior B in the comments.
C'est beau, merci. OK, so, que le Conseil reçoive le rapport PR 2024-08 daté du 17 juin 2024, incluant les résultats de l'appel d'offres pour les constructions du complexe récréatif et le plan financier actualisé, et que le Conseil approuve la modification de la résolution présentée de l'article 4A et adoptée à l'article 6 de la réunion extraordinaire du Conseil du 9 novembre 2023, telle que amended à l'annexe A. C'est bon?
And plus the amendments
Ouais,
just
tel
mentioned.
que amended.
Yeah, we have to vote on the amendment first.
Oh, I'm
and then
sorry.
and then on the main
Yeah.
as amended.
All right, so I need a mover to propose, the amendment was proposed, so a mover to vote for the amendment, moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Councillor Deakin. All in favor? Thank you. And now we'll move the main resolution, which I'll now read in English. The council receives report PR 2024-08 dated June 17th, 2024, including the recreation complex construction tender results and updated financial plan, and that council approve the amended resolution presented at item 4A and adopted at item 6 to the special council meeting on November 9th, 2023 meeting as amended today in Schedule A. Is that good? I need a mover. Moved by-
It's already on the table.
It's on the table, so I'll call the vote. All in favor, thank you. All right, confirming bylaw, that bylaw 2024-051 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the corporation of the Township of Russell and its special council meeting held on June 17th, 2024, be read a first, second, and third time and passed. I need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Deakin, seconded by Councillor Lalonde. All in favor? Thank you. Our next meeting, the next regular public meeting of council will be held on Monday, June 24th, 2024, and we are adjourned at 6:31. Thank you very much, everyone. Merci beaucoup, tout le monde. Bonsoir.